So Kyle, I'm going to throw you another question. You've got a brand new leader, young leader, service manager at a dealership. Maybe they were a top service advisor and they knew how to talk to people. Maybe they were charismatic. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were just good with numbers. But let's say they're a charismatic leader and you put them in that position. What are the top three things that you want from them to get in the next month or two that you want them to get really good at?
Yeah. So I think, really breaking that down, because it matters where they came from too, because you see
Yeah.
this all the time in your exact scenario. Let's say that person was an amazing service writer, right? And then they got promoted into this position. Or let's say they're an amazing shop foreman and they got promoted into this position. Cause it's usually one of the two,
Sure.
honestly.
Sure.
And so what we find immediately is, hey, you kind of like to go back to your comfort zone just as a human being, right? We all like to kind of get in our comfort zone. Well, guess where the service advisor is comfortable? On the drive. So guess where they spend a lot of their time? On the drive. Guess where the shop foreman's comfortable? In the shop. Where do they spend a lot of their time? And then now they're in this manager role and they're like, what do I do? They get kind of this feeling of, I'm not quite sure. I know I'm supposed to run some reports. The old manager did this, so I guess I keep doing that, right? They're really just not quite sure. And so they find themselves going back to the shop or back to the drive and kind of falling in that weird in between stage. And I think step one is always understanding, hey, what is the most important thing, right? Is understanding, okay, what's the most important thing that we really want to achieve? We love to complicate this business. We are great at complicating the most simplest things in the world, right? But the reality is we sell one thing. We sell time. It just happens to come with parts a lot of the times, but we sell time. So understanding really that most important KPI, right, is really driving the efficiency, that proficiency in the shop, the hours, and then understanding, okay, well, how do we get to that goal? Because we see this all the time and, Tom's mentored, hundreds of different managers at this point, right? And we always see, maybe they're trying to emulate what that old manager did. Well, let's say that old manager spent the first 2 hours every single morning, never got out on the drive at 7 a.m. because he was focused on getting his reports done and it took him 2 hours to fill his reports because he had to send them to somebody or whatever that process has always been. Well, they just continue with that behavior because they don't know any different. And so I think it's really analyzing and breaking down, okay, what is the most important thing? Where should you probably be focused at 7 a.m. in the morning as a new service manager or just a service manager, period? Maybe what's going on the service drive, right? And then understanding, okay, well, can I run my reports just a little bit later? And I think a lot of times what happens is, we get a little nervous, right? I know, when I was a younger service manager, the last thing I wanted to do was walk up to my general manager and not challenge them on something. But if I thought the expectation was X and I needed to be doing that by 8 a.m. every morning, well, guess what I was doing? Well, what if I went to them and I said, hey, I really want to be focused on the service drive right at 7. Could I get that to you just an hour later? Or could we do that just a little bit later because I want to do this and this is why? I don't know I know some GMs, but I don't know most GMs are going to be like, nope, you've got to do this. I don't want you to engage with your team on the service drive. Right. So I think, really step one is understanding, hey, what is important, right? What's the number one thing that's important? And what does that end look like? What are we trying to do? Because everybody's situation is just a little bit different, but at the end of the day, we sell time, right? And so understanding that most important KPI is really those hours in our store. And then everything else starts falling in place. Now, the last thing you want to do, right, is go in there and start changing things on day one, right? The first 30 days, I would tell you, is a whole lot of kind of getting to know everybody, getting to know the processes. You might have some amazing ideas and you might think, okay, we just need to change this. But if you immediately start doing that, I don't know that's going to go that great for you versus, hey, if you wait, right, just a little bit, get to know everybody and then start collaborating with all those key people. If there's something on the drive that you're just not quite sure, hey, this probably isn't the best process. Well, who should you talk to about it? Maybe all the service advisors, probably the lot porter, right? What's going on? Who is in that department? Who's working in that department? And really understand, hey, let's collaborate and let's come up with a process together because you know it, right? Then you instantly get buy-in from the individual. The rollout is so much easier because honestly, it's hardly a rollout because they feel like they built the whole thing because they really did build the whole thing. And it's just, hey, we're starting this tomorrow. Yeah, great. I thought we were starting it today, but perfect, right? And so everybody's bought in on that scenario. So, those are one of the things as a manager, for me, I knew I fell into this. Like I felt like I needed to take all the weight. Like all the weight was on my shoulders. I've got the title of the manager at this point, so I just felt like I either had to know everything or I couldn't show that I didn't know, which, Tom hit on earlier, the fact that, I know nobody has ran into this in the car business, but I've seen it a couple times, but there is people out there with egos and insecurity. I know we rarely see it in the car business, but it's out there, right? And the reality is I probably fell into that boat and I felt like I couldn't raise my hand or say, oh, and it was kind of all on me. Well, the moment I realized I say, hey, I'm not quite sure, but we're going to go figure this out together. Right. And we figure it out. We collaborate. We come up with whatever that process is.